Hey, what's going on? I'm Matt O'Leary back with another video, and today I'll be talking about DeShaun Watson and what an offseason could look like if they traded for DeShaun Watson. Before we get started today, I just want to mention you can follow me on social media at Matt O'Leary NY. If you haven't already, please check out the podcast, and of course, you can check out the merch in the description below. All right, so I've gotten a ton of questions in the comments, in DMs. How can the New York Jets make a DeShaun Watson trade work and build a team around it? And Ryan from Jets Talk 24/7 did a phenomenal video yesterday that kind of went his route on what an offseason could look like. I wanted to do one of my own as well to go along with it, and mine's a little bit different. Takes some of the ideas. He does have some really good ideas, but it's my own spin on what I think an offseason could look like. So according to Over the Cap, the New York Jets have, as of right this second, $63 million in cap space for the 2021 season. Now that can change after a lot of moves, and then obviously you have to talk about what DeShaun Watson's cap numbers are going to look like. So let's start this off by trading for DeShaun Watson and what I think it would have to take in order to get something like that done. Now, I know the Texans are in a rough spot because he seems to really want out, but I still think it's going to take 3 first-round picks because that's the caliber of a player he is. If you want to talk about a completely different scenario, sure, but let's just say for this one, it's both first-rounders this year and 1 first-rounder next year as well, so 3 first-rounders total, but just for the sake of argument, we're just worrying about this year in 2021 for right now. So both first-rounders from this year are gone, and then whatever else you want to include in the trade package, you could do that as well. So it's going to be 3 first-rounders in my book. So what does his cap look like after you trade for him? Well, in 2021, it would be $10.54 million, then $35 million, $37, $32, and $32. And that's actually some pretty good value for DeShaun Watson, considering he's a top 5 quarterback. In the next few years, quarterbacks are going to be getting $40+ million, maybe even closer to $50 million, especially if they are a top 5 quarterback. And you're talking about having someone at the caliber of DeShaun Watson for the next 5 seasons at under $40 million, with one of the years, this upcoming one, at 10.54 and then 35, 37, 32, and 32. That's going to end up being a bargain in the last couple of years when you consider that quarterbacks like Josh Allen's going to have to get paid. Dak Prescott's going to get paid, and they're probably going to get over $40 million, which is absolutely nuts. And when you think about it, DeShaun at the value that he would be after you acquire him in a trade is actually pretty good. So that number goes from $63 million down to $52.46 after trading for DeShaun Watson, the 2021 cap number. As a result, the Jets are going to trade Sam Darnold, so I have them flipping Sam Darnold to the Indianapolis Colts for a second-round pick number 54 in this upcoming draft. Trading Sam Darnold saves the Jets $4.78 million, so that brings the number up to 57.24, and that's before we get into cuts, which I'm about to do right now. So there's some obvious ones, and then some that obviously are going to be a little bit on the smaller side that could still save the Jets some value. So Henry Anderson's the first one that comes to mind. That would save the Jets $8.2 million. I really don't see him on the team next year. It makes no sense. He's kind of underachieved the last couple of years. Alex Lewis, while I think is good depth, I don't think he is a starter at this point, and things just seemed to go wrong with them last year. He needs to do his own thing, cut ties, that's fine. That's another $5.37 million in savings. I'm also cutting Greg Van Roten, who is a starting guard who had an up and down year. That would save the Jets $3.4 million. Cutting Ryan Griffin would save the Jets $1.88 million. And I know the tight end position wasn't exactly a good one. And he was pretty solid in 2019, but he did virtually nothing last year. I think you could save that $1.88 million and reinvest it somewhere else. I'm cutting Blake Cashman to save $774,000. He's just too injury prone, not someone that Joe Douglas drafted, and I think they can go a completely different route. Cutting Sam Ficken, who I think you could absolutely upgrade at the kicker position, saves you $850,000. And then 2 wide receivers I'm cutting. Josh Doxson for $985,000 and Josh Malone for $920,000, bringing your cap space to $79.29 million, which is nearly $80 million for the New York Jets to spend in free agency and to sign their draft class. I want to talk about 3 players who I absolutely think the Jets should bring back. The first is Marcus May, in my opinion, the most important. I am bringing him back on a 4-year deal worth $48 million, which is a $12 million AAV. He's an underrated safety in the NFL, was a Jets captain last year, a really solid player. Sure, he has his ups and downs, and I don't think anyone's crazy here. I think we understand he is not as good as Jamal Adams, but he is a very solid starting safety in this league. And definitely someone that I would bring back. He's a leader on this defense. He plays an important role. I think he was solid when he moved back to free safety. I absolutely think it's worthwhile. And $12 million a year is a significant chunk of change for him. And I think he'd be happy to stay for that kind of a cost. I would then bring back Brian Poole, the slot corner, who I think has been pretty solid for the Jets the last couple of years. He's going to get a 3-year deal after taking back-to-back 1-year deals. So 3 years, $22.5 million, which is a $7.5 million AAV. That bumps him up. He was at $5 million this past year. I think he's going to look for a raise and a longer-term deal. So $7.5 million to get one of the better slot corners in football back on your squad. I absolutely think that makes sense. I would do that as well. And then Neville Hewitt, 2 years, $6 million, so $3 million AAV. That's a $1 million raise from what he was getting last year. He was making $2 million. I think you bring him back in a depth role because obviously CJ Mosley's going to come back as your starting inside linebacker, but Hewitt's going to be a rotational guy and someone who's going to get some decent amount of reps in the Jets defense. So I would absolutely bring him back, and I think he's fine depth. So that would leave the Jets with $57.12 million. And now we can get into free agency, external free agency, on who I would like the Jets to address. I'll start with the wide receiver position. And no, I'm not going to spend big money for Allen Robinson, as much fun as that would be. And we've seen him liking tweets with DeShaun Watson going to the Jets. But I'm not going to spend big on him. I'm not spending big on Kenny Golladay. I'm not spending big on Chris Godwin. I'm going a different route and going more for a scheme fit and building a wide receiver room that just has a lot of depth. And I'm going Curtis Samuel at 4 years, $32 million, which is an $8 million AAV. He's just 24 years old. He had 851 receiving yards last year and 200 rushing yards on top of that for 5 total touchdowns. When you think of the Kyle Shanahan offense, he would be a perfect style of fit for that offense. He's a young guy still at just 24 years old. He's an extremely versatile piece, can do a lot of different things in the offense, can line up in the slot, can line up outside, can come around on a jet sweep. He's really an intriguing piece that I think the Jets could have a lot of fun with, and he's a little bit different than Denzel Mims, who I expect to be the other starting receiver on the outside. So that just adds a little bit of an extra element that you would have to worry about for opposing teams' defensive coordinators when you worry about the New York Jets offense. So Curtis Samuel would be my wide receiver signing. Okay, here's my big spend of the offseason. I thought the Jets would do it last year. Instead, he signed a franchise tag to stay with the New England Patriots, and that's Joe Thuney, who I expect to hit the market. 4 years, $60 million. That's $15 million AAV. That would make him the highest paid guard in football, but it would be absolutely worth it as he plays at a Pro Bowl level, an All-Pro level, and you put him at left guard in between Mekhi Becton and Connor McGovern. He would really solidify that line. The Jets, like I said, if he hit the market, they would have spent big on him. I truly believe that was Joe Douglas's #1 free agent target. He did not hit the market. I don't think he lets him go back to New England or go somewhere else, so he makes him the highest paid guard in football. And if you're going to overspend on a position, make sure it's an offensive lineman, a very important position in football, and someone still in their prime. He's under 30 years old, on the right side of 30. Again, one of the best guards in football. I don't see New England retaining him. I think the New York Jets can snag him, and at $15 million against the cap, I would absolutely do it. I think it's worth it. Is it a lot for a guard? Yes, it is. But for someone of Thuney's caliber, I would absolutely do it in a second. Next up, I'm signing a corner, and he could either be a #1 or #2 corner. He's definitely a starting outside corner, I could tell you that much. And I'm signing Ronald Darby for a 3-year deal, $24 million, which is $8 million against the cap. He had a really nice year with the Washington football team. In his age 26 season, he'll be 27. So you have him for 27, 28, 29. Still have him signed through under 30, which is important because 30 tends to be the turning point for cornerbacks and they're at the beginning of the regression. But Darby and Joe Douglas have that connection due to their time with the Philadelphia Eagles. I really liked his game. He signed a 1-year deal last offseason. I thought he could be someone the Jets look at. And I think you could admit that the Jets need help. As much as you might like Bryce Hall, which I do, I think he could be a starter in this league. I would bring in a veteran, a younger side veteran who's just about to turn 27 here for next year, but I think he absolutely could be a starter for this team. I think he's a solid player, and I would be excited to bring him in and pair him with a guy that we feel pretty comfortable in Bryce Hall. Next up, I'm signing Romeo Okwara, defensive end, a 3-year, $30 million contract, $10 million AAV. He's coming off a 10-sack season. He's just 25 years old. Now, the year before, he only had 1 sack, so I think he's going to be a little bit less costly than going out and signing a Bud Dupree, who's probably going to get $17+ million a year. Someone of that caliber is going to get in the high teens, where Okwara is a little bit more of a quote-unquote risk, but he's a young player. I think you could get a lot out of him, especially if you have Quinnen Williams, Folu Fadakasi, John Franklin Myers as a rotational player, and draft somebody on the other side. Spoiler alert for the mock draft, which is coming momentarily. But Romeo Okwara at 25 years old, I think it's worth the flyer. I think $10 million a year is absolutely fair value, and I would do it as a starting defensive end or edge presence on this defense. And last but not least, I am signing a kicker. The Jets definitely need an upgraded kicker. Ryan Suckup, 2 years, $4 million, so a $2 million AAV. And he is going to be my kicker, a much-needed upgrade at the position. So I have $14.12 million in remaining cap space after free agency, heading into the NFL draft, where the Jets still have a lot of picks, even though they don't have a first-round pick. All right, so here we go. We'll start in round 2, pick 34. I am taking Patrick Jones II, an edge presence from Pittsburgh. I've seen some mocks where he's gone in the 3rd round. I've seen mocks where he goes as early as the 1st round. I think he's someone who's probably going to end up going in the 2nd round, and I really like him a lot. 6'5", 260. He had 9 sacks in 11 games last year, 12.5 tackles for a loss. He's your prototypical 4-3 defensive end. He hasn't ever really stood up and been a 3-4 outside linebacker, so I think that really means that he would be a fit in this defense. And he's described as a hard-charging pass rusher. That screams Robert Saleh defense. I think he would be a great fit. I'd feel more than comfortable pairing him on the other side of Romeo Okwara. That would be an intriguing defensive front. Give me Patrick Jones II. I don't think it's a reach at 34, and I would love the pick. Round 2, pick 54 from the Darnold trade. I am taking corner Asante Samuel Jr. He's the son of Asante Samuel, who obviously was a great corner in this league for a long time. His son, Asante Samuel Jr., is a very versatile corner who could play both on the outside and the slot if need be. I think you have him and Bryce Hall compete in year 1, and then he's obviously a developmental piece. Give depth to this secondary. The secondary very much so needs the corner depth, so I would absolutely be okay with spending the 2 second-rounders on the defensive side of the ball, because I still think we addressed a lot of needs in free agency, and this is a deep class that I think you get good value on in rounds 3, 4, and 5, as we will continue to see. But Samuel can project as a starter in this league, and even a starter in year 1 if need be. But at absolute worst, he could be your 4th corner in year 1. Round 3, pick 66, I'm going with Seth Williams, the wide receiver. He has really good size, he has really good hands, he's a good red zone threat, and he's good at attacking 50-50 balls. To me, he reminds me of Denzel Mims in a sense. So you would have your 4 wide receivers, your top 4 wide receivers be Samuel, who you bring in, Denzel Mims on the other side. You have Crowder in the slot and Seth Williams as your 4th wide receiver and the red zone threat. So you have both Williams and Mims, who are bigger, 50-50 jump ball, attacking the ball, and your speedster, smaller guys in Crowder and Samuel. So you have a diverse-looking wide receiver group. And obviously you can keep around Braxton Berrios. Is there one huge star? No. Do I think Mims could be someone who could be an 1,000-yard receiver? Yeah, I think Samuel could be as well. But this is a more diverse looking. You don't necessarily have to have that huge number 1 target at wide receiver number 1. You don't have someone who you could be like, okay, yeah, he's getting 1,500 yards and double-digit touchdowns. This is kind of a different route, and it's a route the San Francisco 49ers have gone, where they have just a diverse-looking cast on offense, which is an intriguing one to go down. Round 3, pick 87, I'm going Deontay Brown, interior offensive lineman from Alabama, 6'4", 338. He projects as a starting guard. I think he could start day 1. That's how good he is. He's a very good run blocker, so I would put him at right guard in between McGovern and Fant, and I would let him go. I think he could start, but worst case scenario, I think Cam Clark on the other side could handle it. So yes, I'm going offense twice in the 3rd round, and I think you continue to build on the offense in the mid-rounds with some depth. With my round 4 selection, I'm going Trey Sermon, the running back from Ohio State, 6'1", 215 pounds. He had 870 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns in 8 games. I thought he played really good football for Ohio State this year, and I am ready to go running back by committee. You don't necessarily have to have a stud running back. I think Ty Johnson, Trey Sermon, and LaMichael Pirine could be a three-headed monster, so to speak. Is there one stud? No, but I think you could have a variety and, different pieces where Sermon's more of the running back who's not going to necessarily catch the ball out of the backfield. And Ty Johnson is a guy who can catch the ball out of the backfield and still be productive. Like, honestly, in this offense, if the Jets had this offense and ran Ty Johnson as their lead running back, there's probably a chance that he could have went for 1,000 yards last year. That's how much an improved offensive line and improved scheme could really help your running back room. So I'm absolutely fine with going either a depth signing, which I did not end up going with this time, or a mid-round running back with Ty Johnson and LaMichael Pirine. In round 5, I'm going back to the defensive side of the ball. I am bringing in Buddy Johnson, a linebacker who is 6'2", 234. Yes, I think it's important to add depth to that room, especially because I'm moving on from Blake Cashman, who just can't stay on the field. He would be a nice developmental piece, a special teamer on top of that. I would be excited about bringing in a player like that for the New York Jets defense. With the second 5 pick from the Leonard Williams trade, I am taking Charlie Kolar, a tight end. He has really good size. He's a really good red zone threat, which is another thing. The Jets have been so bad in the red zone. And yes, bringing in a player like DeShaun Watson would really help that. But I would like to pair either veteran, which I opted not to go with in this free agency route, or a mid to late round pick at tight end. I really like Herndon a lot, but Herndon and Kolar could be a 1-2 punch that I could absolutely be comfortable with at the tight end position. I really think Herndon could be someone who thrives away from Adam Gase. There seems to always be players who turn their career around when Adam Gase is gone, and in this very tight end friendly system, I think Herndon could be that guy. But even so, Kolar as depth in round 5, let's go. I'm down for it. And with the Jets round 6 pick, I am going with Joshua Canando, an edge. He has unique size, 6'7", 265. So he's big. It's a little bit different, and he missed some time the last 2 years, but I think it's intriguing depth at a position of need. So I'm all about adding depth, and in the late rounds, in round 6 and 7, taking a flyer on an athletic piece who, was a little bit injured, but we saw just a couple of years ago what Bless Austin was able to do when he was drafted late with some injury concerns. He had a nice rookie year, took a step back. Maybe he could improve under Robert Saleh, but I really am interested in Canando because I like that size, 6'7", 265. Usually you have your edge presence guys at like 6'4", 6'5", at 250, 260, but he's a little bit bigger, so that's intriguing to me. It's worthwhile to take that swing in my eyes in round 6. So let's take a look at the depth chart after we moved on from the mock draft. We have DeShaun Watson as a starting quarterback with Morgan and White as the backups. Running back, Johnson, Sermon, and Pirine as your running back room. I think that's fine. Wide receiver room looks like Samuel, Mims, Crowder, Williams, and Berrios as your top 5 wide receivers. I think that's pretty solid depth. Again, there's no one big name jumping out from there, but still, it's a room that I would feel comfortable with. Tight end, Herndon and Kolar as your tight ends. Offensive line, Becton at left tackle, left guard, Thuney, McGovern at center, right guard, Deontay Brown, and right tackle, Fant. And on the defensive side of the ball, your starting front, Okwara, Quinnen Williams, Folu Fatukasi, and Patrick Jones II as your starting defensive line. A couple linebackers, Mosley and Hewitt as your starters. Cornerback 1, Darby. Cornerback 2, either Hall or Samuel. I'd probably lean Hall and have Samuel be cornerback number 4. Slot corner, Poole. Free safety, May, and strong safety, Ashton Davis. And your kicker is Ryan Suckup, with your punter being Braden Mann. So that's what my roster looks like. The Jets would still have, enough cap space for them to continue over and continue to build this thing forward. But I do think this is a much improved roster. And yes, it can work trading both first-round picks. You can still get solid depth. You don't have to go absolutely bananas in free agency and sign Robinson and Thuney and the number 1 edge and the number 1 corner. You could still build your roster with mid-round picks. And when you are absolutely acquiring a top 5 quarterback, that really helps out things a lot. So let me know what you think about the roster down below in the comments. Get at me on social media. Subscribe if you're new, and I will talk to you next time.